Hey everyone! Welcome back to Hollywood Scope, your go-to source for the real stories behind Hollywood's biggest names and the secrets they never tell. And today, we're diving into the shocking, emotional, and surprisingly raw revelations from Cheryl Hines, the actress and comedian who's finally opening up about her complicated life with Robert F. Kennedy Jr., her husband, America's most controversial political figure. From rumors of affairs and political backlash, to personal heartbreak, lost friendships, and a chaotic home life full of exotic animals, Cheryl's new memoir, Unscripted, pulls back the curtain like never before. So, let's unpack this wild story, because it's got everything. Love, betrayal, power, politics, and a marriage that somehow survived it all. Cheryl Hines, best known for her hilarious role on Curb Your Enthusiasm, has always been seen as calm, classy, and unproblematic. But behind that composed smile was a woman quietly living through one of the most turbulent marriages in the public eye. In her new memoir, Unscripted, released November 12th, Cheryl opens the door to her private life with RFK Jr., the man who became the 26th Secretary of Health and Human Services under President Donald Trump. That appointment alone sent shockwaves through the nation, and for Cheryl, it was the moment her world shifted forever. She writes that when her husband accepted the position, she decided to step back from Hollywood, staying silent as the world debated his controversial stance on vaccines and public health. But the silence only fueled speculation. Rumors began to swirl about her marriage, her politics, even her loyalty. And soon, the headlines weren't just about RFK Jr. anymore. They were about her. Then, in 2023, Kennedy announced a short-lived presidential campaign before later dropping out and throwing his support behind Trump. According to Cheryl, that decision caused real tension in their marriage. She admits that she didn't always agree with her husband's politics, and the pressure of public life was beginning to take its toll. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared her for what came next. Out of nowhere, reports broke that RFK Jr. had been involved in a romantic sexting affair with 31-year-old political journalist Olivia Nuzzi. The scandal exploded online. Screenshots, whispers, allegations. And once again, Cheryl found herself dragged into a national storm she never asked for. In her memoir, she reveals that those rumors were almost her breaking point. She says, "Of course, I hated all of it. The swirl of headlines, rumors, and insinuations was upsetting and overwhelming. I had hit a wall." At the time, Cheryl was in Europe with her daughters when the story broke. She admits her first reaction was indifference, not because she didn't care, but because she'd simply reached emotional exhaustion. She writes, "I didn't care what had happened, who said what was real, what wasn't. It felt like a game people were playing, and I wasn't interested in participating. So, she did what most people wouldn't. She stayed in Europe, extending her trip to process everything privately. Without her daughters around, it was her moment to break down, breathe, and figure out whether her marriage still had a future." But when she returned home to the US, RFK Jr. was waiting for her. Literally. He picked her up from the airport, and before they even got home, they pulled over and had the talk. She recalls, "We probably talked for an hour while the security team watched over the car. I felt so distant from him. The only threads connecting me to him were our kids." Over the next few days, the couple locked themselves in a room and finally put everything on the table. Every rumor, every mistake, every painful moment from the last few years, and through those raw, emotional conversations, they started rebuilding. Cheryl writes, "Through those soul-searching days, we tightened our ties that bind, but even as they tried to heal privately, the media wasn't done. Stories continued to circulate, claiming that Cheryl had demanded her husband move her to Washington, D.C. because she didn't trust him living there alone. According to Kennedy family biographer Jerry Oppenheimer, insiders claimed she was still recovering from emotional shock and pain and didn't want RFK Jr. anywhere near Kennedy groupies. Some reports even suggested she gave him an ultimatum. Move me or else." Then came the twist. RFK Jr. reportedly bought a $4.4 million townhouse in Georgetown to convince Cheryl to move east. Sources told Page 6 that he believed the new home would help mend their marital bridges and keep their love alive, turning them into Washington's next power couple. Cheryl never confirmed those claims directly, but she later admitted that yes, she did move to DC, and that new life was different. She describes it as challenging, lonely at times, and full of unexpected loss. In Unscripted, Cheryl writes about how some of her oldest friends turned their backs on her because of her husband's politics. People she'd known for years, people she'd laughed and worked with, suddenly didn't want anything to do with her. She says she doesn't hold grudges against all of them. Some, she admits, were just trying to protect themselves from the backlash of being associated with RFK Jr. But others, she calls out directly. She mentions Lori David, the ex-wife of her Curb Your Enthusiasm co-star, Larry David, who criticized Cheryl for attending RFK Jr.'s confirmation hearing. And then there was actor Bradley Whitford, who blasted Cheryl publicly on social media for standing by her husband. She writes, "Why didn't Bradley just call me if he wanted to talk me into revolting against my husband?" The attacks were so cruel and personal that at one point, RFK Jr. suggested they fake a separation just to calm the hate. Cheryl refused, saying the lie would be impossible to hide from paparazzi. Still, life with RFK Jr. has never been dull. Beyond the political storms, Cheryl paints a picture of their home life, one that's eccentric, chaotic, and sometimes a little terrifying. Their home, she writes, is basically an animal sanctuary. RFK Jr. loves collecting exotic creatures, birds, turtles, and even an emu named Toby that he once bought for Cheryl's daughter. She jokes that she couldn't walk into her backyard without a shovel, for protection, because yes, Toby once attacked her, but through all the madness, the politics, the scandal, the animals, and the public judgment, Cheryl insists there's still love. She recalls meeting RFK Jr. back in 2005, through Larry David, when both were still married to other people. 6 years later, they reconnected, both divorced, and that's when the spark really ignited. Their early relationship was long distance. Him in New York, her in Los Angeles, but the chemistry was undeniable. She says, "When I met Bobby, I was living in this Hollywood bubble. Then I met him, an environmental attorney. Fascinating, smart, funny, and completely different from anyone I'd ever met." Eventually, Kennedy moved to California, and the couple built a life together, even buying a stunning $6.6 million home in Brentwood, which remains their main base today. Cheryl ends her memoir not as a victim, but as a survivor, a woman who's learned that love in the public eye is never simple. She admits her marriage isn't perfect, but it's real. And despite everything, she still calls RFK Jr. her partner, her challenge, and her greatest adventure. So, what do you think? Did Cheryl Hines and RFK Jr. truly find strength through scandal? Or are they just surviving under pressure? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next Hollywood Scope deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and stay tuned.